I feel no matter how busy you are, how ambitious you are in the company, it's always very important to set aside, effort to build the culture, right?
The more we model what we believe values are, the culture is, the more we help other people understand. And the more we can identify those disparities between your understanding and my understanding, and then have conversations about that so that we can come to a common ground across that. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead in the world today. And joining me is Henry. Henry is an engineering leader, cloud advocate, and 2024 LinkedIn Top Voice. He is the host of Tech Lead Journal, a podcast about technical leadership and excellence, and one of my favorite podcasts. His nearly 2 decades in many different industries have fed a deep interest in technical leadership and excellence and building high-performing engineering teams. When he's not thinking about that, he has 9 Singapore marathons under his belt, which helps him keep up with his kids. Welcome, Henry.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. Happy to be here, Michael.
I've been looking forward to this for a good long while. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self, bringing that into everything that you do, might be a valuable approach?
Yeah, so I think the funny journey for me was that throughout my career, it's not always like an upward trajectory. There are so many moments of ups and downs. And especially in those down moments, I actually learned that I need to be more self-aware. I need to be more authentic because there are so many leaders out there, but I can see not all of them are great. So I think if we are trying to always look for others as our, idol, as someone who can mentor us, sometimes you might feel disappointed. So that's throughout my journey so far, I only maybe saw a few great leaders, and most of them actually are more towards, performance driven, more command control, those kind of types. And throughout that journey, actually, I explored myself, read books, listen podcasts, whatever you name it, self-help, those kind of things. And throughout those journey, I found a couple of things that keep popping up. And the first thing is always like to be more self-aware, understand about yourself, and then to be more authentic. So probably since then, I try to experiment myself, be more authentic, be more self-aware. And yeah, that leads to where I am now, I guess.
What does authenticity mean to you?
Well, maybe the simplest way I think of it is that, to show to the external world as if you are showing it to yourself, right? So there's no, dual mode, so to speak, like one that you show to the out world, to the external world, to the other people, and one that you internally keep to yourself. So probably that will be my definition, the simple definition, yeah.
I like that definition a lot. It's simple and crystal clear. What helps you maintain that authenticity when you start getting worried that maybe the people you're with or the person you're talking to isn't so excited about some aspect of yourself?
Yeah, so I think as humans, we always have this tendency to think that, okay, maybe others will think differently, to what our character is, to our behaviors, even our skill sets and those things. Imposter syndrome typically is very high for someone in tech like me. So you always have that niggling, feeling whether people will accept you for who you are. Well, I guess for me, since probably I will not be able to curate fully myself, right? Then what's the point of you trying to act? So sometimes you may need to change your environments, finding people that can accept you more. But the other way is like to build your own confidence, right? Figure out what things that you're good at, keep showing that. If the environment is not suitable for you, maybe try to tweak the environments, and yeah, keep on doing what you're good at. Show who you are, and I think from there, authenticity will become much more natural. And obviously, the hardest part of authenticity is being courageous, right? To be confident enough to show who you are, because yeah, sometimes again, like we doubt who we are simply because like we care so much about what other think about us.
It's an interesting paradox that the more we doubt who we are, the less other people trust how we're showing up, and the more courageous we are able to show who we are, the more that they trust and believe in us, even if there's aspects of what we're showing them that they are not down with.
Yeah, I feel confidence is really one key aspect that everyone should hone, right? Should try to improve, because only when you're confident, then I feel, in my opinion, that you can thrive more, you can excel more, simply because you have the energy, you have the kind of the like the courage itself to actually do what you want, right? And also show yourself being more authentic. Yeah.
What helped you first start building that confidence?
Yeah. So there are a few aspects, definitely. Obviously, I'm personally not, that kind of extrovert person naturally. So many times I dislike, being in public, doing public speaking, um, you know, raising your hands up in a meeting. So that's not something natural to me. But over the time, throughout, maybe situations, experiments, I try to put myself out there. I think that's one of the key learnings for me. Podcasting is also one way for me to actually put myself out there more. And I've been running it for 5 years now, so I guess I must have improved. So the key lesson here is putting yourself out there, maybe in a small context first, and while you're doing it over and over and over, right? There will be some time that you feel that you have improved, and if you're doing it for the longest time, then you might have improved by a lot, even if you don't realize it. So I think that's maybe one way for me to do that. And maybe the second thing is just, yeah, experiment, ask people which aspects that I can improve more, and yeah, from there maybe you can become much more, better, in a sense.
I hadn't thought of it this way. When you mentioned podcasting was helping you build your confidence, it occurs to me that podcasting is a great way to start building confidence because it lets us get in front of the camera, start talking about whatever it is on our mind, and no one's probably going to hear us because when a podcast starts, maybe our mom or our dad or partner or best friend is going to listen and not many other people. So we can get started and not worry about all the things that are going wrong and that aren't going the way that we want them to, and everything else that tells us that we're a horrible person and don't know what we're doing. And then, as you say, the more we do it, the better we get. And somewhere along the way, we strike a chord with our tribe and we start getting listeners and more people show up.
Yeah, maybe I
And
can
it,
share one key learning, for me doing podcasts as well, right? Obviously, in the very beginning, you feel very nervous, especially if you invite, seemingly, well-known guest, more popular guest, someone who you admire, right? So obviously that that kind of fear takes place. But after doing it for quite some time, I realized that many of these people, also the one that you think are kind of like a god, in so to speak, right? They are just also normal human being. They have their own, good skills and also not so great skills, right? So including speaking itself, in a camera, doing the recording. Sometimes you can feel that you are better than them in this podcasting, especially if you have done it for a while. I think that also teaches me that, yeah, maybe everyone has their own skills, right? So just be confident if you're good at it. And the other thing is, like, even if you are really not as good as them in terms of public speaking, they will still accept you for who you are. And there are so many kind people in the world. So no matter how good or how bad you are, people will still accept it. And I think still many people are kind enough to accept who you are.
I agree. I find this to be absolutely true. That regardless of what disparity there is, or you feel there is, even if it's not there between your skills and their skills, whichever way you think the disparity goes, most people are super happy to have a conversation, and especially if it's one like you and I are having, or it's just two people having a good time talking with each other and exploring something of mutual interest, then most people are going to be down with that. It's a really great way to become comfortable with reaching out to people, having this this specter of having to maintain a conversation with someone you've never met, or maybe you had a brief conversation beforehand for like a while in a recording that other people might actually watch.
Funny enough, the when you mention about reaching out to people, right? You will think at this point in time it's easy to reach out to people. No, that's not true. And if you can imagine, in the very beginning, it's even harder, right? Because, I mean, no other people know who you are, right? Especially if you invite someone who is far, far away. So I learned this as well throughout my journey, that you need to practice getting rejected, and a lot of it. Coming back to the point of building confidence, right? One of the key things why we are not confident is because we fear being rejected. And I saw one of these great TED Talk before. I don't know whether you have seen it. His name is something like Jiang, and he practiced himself being rejected 100 days in a row or something like that. And he kind of like shared what are some outrageous things that he did that people would surely reject. But I think throughout that experience, he found that some people would still try to accommodate. And the more you do it, the more you feel, you're being rejected, right? The more you feel it's natural, yeah, I will get rejected no matter what. But if I don't ever try, if I don't ever ask, you will never get it, right? So I think practice getting rejected is something also that I feel it's a very tremendously beneficial for me.
And it directly comes into everything else that you do. If you want to have a big impact in your work that other people are paying you for, then a lot of your ideas people are going to question or reject outright. And you're right, the more comfortable we are with rejection in general, then the less scary it is to bring up this big or even a small idea at work of a different way to do things. What helps you have the resilience to keep going in the face of all those rejections for your podcast and in all the other ways that you've been experimenting?
Yeah, so this is definitely true for everyone. Everyone has their own, situations, I believe, right? Sometimes it could be good, sometimes it could be bad, right? I think building resilience is very important for everyone. First, of course, it comes back to confidence again, right? Because when you are being tested, with some situations that you feel is difficult, you feel it's hard, having the confidence to feel that you can bounce back, you can face through that challenge is something very important. Second thing is, I think, coming back to my point of my learnings, those things, right, becoming more self-aware. I think this is also something that I find really useful for me, because by being more self-aware, you understand who you are, the values that you embody, the kind of traits that you feel you're good at, and the kind of traits that you are not good at, which is also something that is very important, right? And by being self-aware, you can think of them as like, okay, these are my kind of like my profiles, right? So I should hone more towards my values, towards my strength, and try to avoid what I'm not good at. Or if you want to improve it, you can also try to improve yourself. And being resilient here also means that you have support, right? Sometimes you cannot just be resilient by yourself. I know some people might be able to do that, but sometimes you need support, either friends, family, or it could be other people, random guests that you meet along the way in a coffee shop or something like that, just having a chat. Resilience can be found anywhere, as long as people help to support us as well. And the last thing for me, I find this is something also very beneficial for me. The moment I saw it, right, I bumped into this thing called stoicism when I did my self learning. One key aspect about stoicism is that you can control what you cannot control, right? And just remembering that there are things that you cannot control, and so that don't focus so much on trying to change it simply because you can't control it, and focus on the things that you can control. So once I saw it, I could not unsee it. So yeah, just focusing on that, trying to focus yourself on what you can control, I think can build more resilience towards yourself.
That is really important. This is one reason I frame everything in terms of experiments, because experiments don't succeed or fail. They just give us data. And that I find can take a lot of the fear away from doing something. If it's not my fault if it doesn't turn out the way that I wanted to, then it's way easier to get started than if I fear that it not going the way I want to is some kind of reflection on me.
Yeah, I like your definition of experiment, right? So it's not giving you yes or no, right? It simply gives you data, right? So I think I love that definition. Yeah.
Thank you. As you were going through and identifying your strengths and your not strengths, what helped you identify what those were and sort of tease apart what they actually were for you versus what other people said they should be or were versus what you wish they were, but they weren't actually?
Yeah, this really comes back to you, right? How you do reflections. There are a few exercises that I did many years ago. I think one I remember from Stephen Covey. This might come from his book, I think First Things First or something like that. And he has a bunch of questions, basically understanding what values you value the most, what moments that you feel you did so great, what kind of experience that you enjoy doing from childhood. I think that's also one key thing that someone needs to explore further. And the other thing is, I think I did this thing called Strengths Finder. I'm sure you have heard about it before. So one interesting aspect of Strengths Finder is that maybe from childhood in school, right? Many of us are being taught that we should focus on improving what we are not good at. If you got bad score in math, just keep doing it. Train yourself, be good at math. But I think what Strengths Finder teaches is actually, if you know what you're good at something, you should continue improving that, right? Because imagine what kind of impact if you keep continue doing building your strengths, right? Could be 2x, 10x, whatever that is. Instead of focusing yourself, your effort into those things that you're not good at, which naturally might translate into less result. So I think those two things definitely, again, like coming back to your values, doing some more reflections, your moments in childhood that you enjoy, the experience that you want to have, and also doubling down on your strengths. Yeah, I think that is something that maybe other people can also try.
I love Strengths Finders. And I really love your reminder to go back and reflect on what we enjoyed as a child. So whatever lit us up then probably still lights us up now. And back then, we were way less worried about what other people said we should like, and we just did what we enjoyed. So there's a good chance that those are things that we're really good at.
Yeah, I fully agree.
So this is all for yourself. How do you help others feel safe and empowered to bring their unique talents into everything that they do?
I think in terms of organization, we have heard this term being mentioned a lot of times now, like psychological safety, building a psychologically safe environment. I feel that is completely important for any leaders who listen. If you want your people to be more authentic, to feel their selves in their work, you need to build a psychologically safe environment. It is not an easy thing to do, but something that you should always remind yourself. You should always invite other leaders in your organizations to also do the same.
How are you doing that at the company where you are now, where you're head of engineering for lots of other smart people?
Yeah. So I find this correlates a lot with the size of your organization, right? I'm currently at a very small, venture startup, right? The company size is probably about 14, 15 people. So when you know each other really well and you started the journey together since the very beginning, the psychological safety is quite natural. Although having said that, right, it also depends on the leadership within the companies, right, the organization. But the more the organization size grows, obviously you can have so many leaders with different characteristics, with different experience, that would bring their own way of doing things, which sometimes conflict with this psychological safety. And for me, I've been in that situation as well, right? And it's very hard, especially if you're challenging other leaders, or even your boss, right? Sometimes um, the way I do it, I mean, if you can't change your peers, right, at least you can do it within your departments, your division, right, your teams. One key aspect about nurturing psychological safety that I feel very important is coming back to how you first treat people making mistakes. Second is treating people who say I don't know, right? And third is how do you want how do you reward the behavior within your organization? I think these three key things are very important, right? First is like when people make mistakes, how do you go about it? How do you approach it? Do you blame the person? Do you try to understand the situation, try to improve the process such that the other people won't make mistakes anymore? Do you name them publicly? So those things definitely is one aspect where if people see how you blame others, right, and if it's not done in a psychologically safe way, people will tend to be, reserved. Try not to do too many things that would rock the boat, so to speak, right? Because people values their safety within the company. And then second thing is like when people say I don't know. Sometimes this can be very subtle and it's like a small thing for many other people, right? But when other people say I don't know, it's actually a very courageous thing that they're doing, and you should value that because yeah, obviously there are so many things we might not know, right? And the fact that you are confident enough to say I don't know means like they are actually opening up themselves Obviously, if you keep saying I don't know, that there's something about your competence as well. But if there's some situation where people say I don't know, how do you actually engage them to figure it out together? Maybe with you, maybe with the team, find better solutions. I think that's also very important. And yeah, the last is like, how do you want to reward behaviors in your organization? If you promote, for example, competition, right? Competing between each other, that by itself would probably translate to less psychologically safe culture. Yeah, so those are the key learnings from my experience.
Are these, how do you expect those three foundations to change or shift or get added onto as your organization grows?
It will change by a lot, especially the moments you grow rapidly and you hire a lot of other external people that not necessarily align with that culture. Yeah, you will see these frictions along the way really fast, especially if you're growing really fast. I've experienced one being in a scale up, and sometimes yeah, you just cannot control how this pans out, right? Because simply in the end, the one who has the power is the one who can determine the culture, I feel. This could be the founders, co-founders of the organization, the C executives within the organization, and the way they lead the company shows a lot how they want the culture to be shaped. I mean, we all know every company must have their own values, culture, whatever. They put it in a poster, they keep sending people. But the fact that the behaviors of the leaders actually is the true, how should I say, true signals what the company value really is.
What are you putting in place now and working with the founders to get set so that as you grow, and especially as you hit that scale point, that the culture you have now that you're very intentionally creating will continue to grow and thrive and expand?
Yeah. One key aspect that every leader could do, again, this coming back to you being courageous and be more authentic, right? If you feel something is wrong, obviously you have to mention it, right? You have to discuss about it. One challenging thing I feel as a leader is like we always need to bring up difficult conversations, even though you don't like it. You feel there might be tensions. Bringing up difficult conversations and discuss like how if there's something not right to you, how can you improve that with others? I think it's always something that like it's not natural for me, again, like coming back to my introvert nature. But the more you can do difficult conversations, I think the more that you can drive change, influence change. And the bigger the size of the organization is, I think the harder, obviously, but the more impact that you can bring. Simply because if you can improve the culture, many other people would really benefit from that.
This is another thing we can practice in little tiny steps and keep them as experiments so that we don't worry about any of those succeeding or failing. It's what one thing I'm hearing you say is that culture isn't a big thing. It's not a 10-year plan, 5-year plan on how it's going to evolve. That culture is what's the next little step that I'm taking? What's the next tiny action that I'm doing? And evaluating that and continually refining our actions so that we are constantly keeping the culture moving in a direction that we want it to go.
Yeah. So I find culture is sometimes can be abstract, right? But the way I see it is like, like within the family, we also have a culture, right? So like you can say what you want, but the children will see what you do, right? So if let's say, hey, my child, yeah, you have to go and study. But if you yourself never see, they never see you reading books or studying yourself. How can you embody that culture, right? So that's one way, right? Lead by example, show, talk the walk the talk, right? I think that's very important. And the second thing is, like, I think I've been in I've been in Google, right, where they have this thing called googliness as their culture. And if you can yourself immerse in that culture, such that if people interact with each other and they point out about being googliness, it's like the values is always in the back of your mind. I think that's one signal, true signal, that actually you have kind of like really embody a strong culture, such that everyone knows about it, put it in the back of your mind. Because honestly, in some other companies, right, even though they have their cultures, we don't remember it. We don't feel that we see it through within the organization. So yeah, I think it's that fact that I think people can reflect whether you have a good culture or not.
Those companies where the culture is embodied versus the companies where it is declared with posters on the wall and annual training showing that you can spit out what the 18 values are and 6 core tenets and all the rest. There's such a difference in this, everything about the company, how successful it is in every way, financial, of course, and also retention, ease of hiring, because everyone wants to work there. Referrals come in for employees and for customers because everyone loves the way that you work. For you, what is the business value of creating these cultures?
I think that's a very hard question to answer. First of all, I think it's very hard to quantify that. But you will feel the difference when you are in it or when you are not in it. I think that's how I experienced throughout my career, right? The business value is immense, right? Although it's not easily quantifiable. When you have these kind of cultures, right? People will want to thrive. People want to show themselves. People want to progress. People would align with your values and deliver their best. Simply again, because if we maybe refer to like the Maslow's hierarchy, right? The first thing is people need to feel safe. In an organization, if they never feel safe, maybe because, I don't know, from the management, command and control, blameful kind of situations, people will prioritize their safety. But once you have that kind of like safety, psychological safe, right, and you support people in whatever they do, naturally people will want to thrive, because we all go to work. I'm sure every one of us, at least most of us, want to thrive in what we are doing, because our career is such an important part of our life. And by not thriving and spending your career, I think it's a completely kind of like waste of time. So people naturally want to thrive. They want to achieve common goals. So when you have that kind of culture, I believe the business value is very tremendous, because imagine if once people start aligning to the goals, bringing themselves up, right, showing their skills and collaborating with others. I think that's also one key aspect, right? If you collaborate more, I think the impact will be tremendous. Yeah.
When you're talking with the other heads of department and the founders, the other leaders in your company about which part of culture to invest in, or making trade-offs between investing in this part of culture versus that part of engineering versus that marketing campaign, how do you weigh all those different aspects and decide how much to invest where this time?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, this is also a very difficult question to answer, because many people will have their own ways of setting up the culture. But I learned this great thing as well throughout my journey, is that a culture should not be determined by all the leaders and executives within the company. A culture should be driven by the founders of the company, right? The reason is because, again, coming back to, like, if you want to show embody your culture, right, the fact that the founders should believe in that is something very, very strong, right? So if you can set, I don't know, 10 values, but the leaders never embody that, the founders never believe in that, so what's the point in setting those values? So I think that's the first thing, right? Because the founders would determine the people that they hire. So if the values come from them, naturally they hire people that can embody those values. And the more it trickled down, right, I think the stronger the values become. So I feel that first of all, you're setting up the culture. It should be from the very, very top, right? How they want it to be set. And obviously within your departments, within, for example, engineering, you can kind of like have a subculture, because there could be some technical aspects that you want to set as culture. Maybe standards, maybe the way of doing things. Again, the same. The leaders can also set the values that align with the top values as well. So I think that's maybe my interpretation of making a great culture in an organization. Yeah.
When you, the founders, people on your team, your peers across the company have different understandings of what a particular part of the culture means, or how to inhabit the culture in this particular instance, how do you work through those conversations?
Again, another difficult question. I guess people interpret things differently, right? When you say courageous, right? For example, just picking one example as a value. Courageous for one person can be different with courageous with other person, especially introvert versus extrovert, right? For the introvert, doing something, I don't know, doing public speaking itself could be the most courageous thing that they ever done in their life, right? But maybe for the extrovert, it's just like very easy to do. So I think aligning that expectations is very important, right? And this may be coming back to the performance. How do you do performance review within the organization? How do you set align expectations? So how do you actually mention the examples? So when you say courageous within this company, within this organization, this is what we mean. These are the examples of behaviors that people embody to be categorized as courageous. I think that is very important to set, because otherwise, if you let it be interpreted by people, you would tend to have misinterpretation, misalignment, and people feel it's not fair. I think coming back to how you do performance reward, how do you want to set the expectations, and how do you show what kind of examples that you actually value in terms of those aspects.
The more we model what we believe values are, the culture is, the more we help other people understand. And the more we can identify those disparities between your understanding and my understanding, and then have conversations about that so that we can come to a common ground across that.
Yeah.
This all seems like a whole lot of work, and we must have to do all of this every time we hire someone new or someone leaves, because that's going to affect how the culture is and how everyone shows up with each other. How do you balance all this with actually getting work done and shipping product out to customers so they can give you lots of money and pay all of your salaries?
I feel no matter how busy you are, how ambitious you are in the company, it's always very important to set aside, effort to build the culture, right? Simply, again, coming back to what we discussed earlier, the business impact actually is quite immense, be it the positive trend or the negative trend, right? Because if you really have a bad culture, you may try, you may do command control, you might put stick and carrot to people. It might work for a while, but over the long term, it's not going to be sustainable, right? So if you really believe that culture is a key aspect of business organization performance, you would tend want to invest a lot in it. It doesn't have to be 100% all the time, obviously, but putting aside something, some effort, how you want to build your culture, I think it has to be done by leaders, right? You cannot just focus on the goals, the deliverables, and all that.
I find that to be true also. If there's one thing you're going to focus on culture, because everything else falls out of that. How do you help people find their way through all the change, uncertainty, and overwhelm that seems to be filling life up these days?
Yeah, I think it's very hard these days, right? You know, first, I mean, a few years ago we had that pandemic, so it was a very challenging time for many of us, I'm sure. Now we have the maybe more political, economical situations that are not certain. Some layoffs happening. AI is the also the crazy thing that is happening within tech. People fear about their jobs and all that. So I think it's first is to acknowledge that all these things are happening, and all these things are something that we have to go through. Is one of the most important aspect for me, right? Be present, acknowledge that this is the situation, right? But obviously not to just withdraw yourself, right, or just accept what it is, right? I think one important aspect, especially if this is happening within your organization, is you can maybe open up a channel with your leaders or with your peers to just have a conversation about it, right? It doesn't have to be a conversation where it leads you to a solution, right? But at least just having people, expressing their fear, maybe their uncertainties with each other, discussing how they approach it within themselves. I think that itself can be a very huge support for someone who is going through this, right? Again, it doesn't have to have a solution. Just by expressing it with others, I think it's something that is quite important, because sometimes I feel when we are in this situation and we keep it to ourselves and we try ourselves to go through it alone, that's where it gets more difficult, right? It comes back to your mental health, the stress and anxiety that you feel. And I think one aspect, again, like coming back to awareness, right? So, and the stoicism thing that I mentioned earlier, right? So if you're self-aware of who you are, what you're good at, what you can control and cannot control, right? And focusing on this actually helps you to navigate the situations better, right? Simply, you build your hope. So one aspect that we always hate in these kind of situations is we feel the future is gloom. All right, there's no hope. And building that kind of hope, I think, is very important for everyone, right? So what you are working towards to, and no matter how difficult the situation is, I'm sure there must be a path for you to at least make a small step, right? And that's why having support with others, talking with others, is something that is very important, I feel. Those things probably are some of my tips how to go through these difficult situations.
That's a lot of good stuff, Henry.
Yeah, I hope it helps other people as well.
I really like your tip for just do something. This is something I tell people all the time as well, that if you don't know what to do next, then just do something, because if there's no clear next step, then any step is fine. And in the very worst case, what you're going to learn is you don't recognize that you learned anything after that step, and so you can take another one. And
Yeah.
this random walk can get us everywhere that we need to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to share with you something that my friend told me. I don't know the original source of this phrase, right? So I mean, it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of a phrase, right? So he shared a story of some guru or some expert saying this, right? You have a problem, right? Do you have a solution? If you say yes, right, then why worry? Okay. So next is, you have a problem? Yes. Do you have a solution? No. Then why worry? So this is like a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, like, okay, don't worry so much, right? If you have an answer, if you know what you want to do, just do it. If you don't have the answer, if you don't know what to do, again, don't worry and just let it go, right? So I find it this is like a funny way of reminding ourselves. Sometimes we worry too much. So yeah, that sometimes if I go through this struggle, uh, reminding myself of that thing is yeah, it's a funny way of bringing me back up.
I like that a lot. For people who are enjoying our conversation, Henry, and would like to connect up with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so I think as mentioned, I have a podcast called Tech Lead Journal. It's been around for 5 years. So you can reach out to me on every channel that you can find, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, right, Instagram. And you can also reach out to me personally on my personal LinkedIn. So yeah, happy to chat if you have anything to ask.
What would you like to leave our audience with today?
Well, I think we have talked a lot about leadership, building culture, and all that, right? I just want to share a few key things, what I find my leadership journey so far, right? First of all, yes, leadership itself is a journey. Everyone might taste their first leadership differently than others, right? So there's no one true guaranteed path for you to achieve great leadership. We always saw, great leaders, I don't know, like Steve Jobs, Satya Nadella, or whoever you admire, right? We all think they have a certain path towards that great leadership, but it's really not true. Everyone has their own way, and even if you ask them, right, they will feel that there are times that they really don't know what they're doing, right? So it's a journey, definitely. Second thing is, you gotta love dealing with people, with the complexity, ambiguity, right? So you need to be able to sometimes read the situations, without people telling you. I think that's very great skills to have as a good leader. And you just have to love serving other people, right? Wanting them to grow and thrive. I think that must be the first important mission of a leader, right? It's not the goal that you achieve, right? But it's actually to to make other people thrive and achieve the goal together with you. I think that's the best way of doing leadership. And yeah, I think at least for me, in my experience, in my career, I rarely see great leaders. So it's something very rare in the industry. I feel, to see great leaders. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of like how should I say, resign yourself not seeing great leaders. You yourself can step up and be that great leader yourself, right? Comes back again to being courageous, right? Have a courage to lead, embody the kind of values that you want great leaders to have. And yeah, just step up and, feel these kind of like rare spots in the world to be a great leader. And just remind yourself when you are in a leadership position, right? Leadership means, to lead means somebody has to follow you. And the best way for other people to follow you is not through punishment, through, power, hierarchy, and all that, but it's their willingness to actually follow you. I think that's the very important thing as a leader.
Very much so. And all of us are always leading ourselves. So if we dream of becoming a great leader, then we can start by becoming a great leader for ourselves. And then other people naturally start following, because, as you say, there are not many people who lead themselves very well, let alone anyone else.
Fully agree with that. Yeah.
Thank you, Henry, for joining us today.
No problem. I really enjoyed this. Thanks again for inviting me, Michael.
You're welcome. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Henry and I would love to know, how are you leading yourself today? Thanks, and have a great day.